Welcome to this particular video. In this particular video, I'll be teaching you, we'll be solving some quadratic equations. Okay, we'll be solving some quadratic equations. So I want you to be very calm, patient, okay, and you really need to follow up to have a good understanding of what I'm talking about. And if you have any issue with the solutions, with the way I've explained, or with anything, then no issues, okay? Just go down to the description, to the comment section, and write down your complaints in the comment section, and I'll get back to you shortly, so you have no issues with that. So before we continue, please, I would like you to subscribe to this channel and like this video. I'll always be uploading how to solve examples on different topics in mathematics, just trying to help individuals all around the globe. So I really enjoy you clicking on this video. I would like to subscribe if you are interested in what the content I'm producing, and like this video as well. So the first question which I would like us to move into, let's take the first question 1. Okay, question 1, which is x squared minus 3x minus 10 equal to 0. Okay guys, so looking at this quadratic equation, you have x squared minus 3x minus 10. Now, how do we solve this equation? That's the issue. How do we solve this equation? This is a quadratic equation. How do we solve it? Let's solve this equation. First of all, there are so many ways of solving this particular equation. Either you could solve this particular equation by using the quadratic formula, okay, or you could solve it by factorization, or thirdly, you could still solve this equation through the graphical method. So firstly, you have through the quadratic formula, and this is the quadratic formula where you have x equal to minus b plus or minus b squared minus 4ac all over 2a. So that's the quadratic formula. So that's let's say the first way of solving this equation. You could decide to just use these to solve the equation, or you could use the graphical method to solve this equation. You could plot a graph of x squared minus 3x minus 10 equal to 0, and at the end of the day, you'll be able to find the points that suits this equation. So looking at graphs of quadratic equation, you could draw a graph and you could end up having something like this. This is your y and this is your x. Or you could end up having something like this. So that's it. That's how the quadratic equation, when being drawn on a graph, looks like. When you draw the graph, either you could have something like this or you could have something like this. So looking at this, your points, your solutions are these points. All you need to do is to check on this point where it crosses the x-axis, and here you have your x1, and there you have your x2. Here you have your x1, and here you have your x2. So that's easy. this is the first part. Of course, in quadratic equations, you are always going to have two solutions for x. You are going to have two solutions for x. So talking about the first part, where you have x equals to minus b plus or minus this all on 2a, you end up with x1, x2. You are going to have two solutions, and using the graphical method to solve this, you could end up drawing a graph, and this you are going to have it in this format. It doesn't matter, you might have in the positive section or in the negative section, or you could cross in between. No qualms with that. But at the end of the day, wherever it crosses on the x-axis, you're gonna check those points on the x-axis, and those are gonna be your answer. Okay. Next, I showed you these two. It crosses like this. Either you have this or you have this. When drawing this, you're either going to have this or you have this. So this is how it appears. This is how it looks like. Next, the other way of solving this is through factorization. It's through factorization. All you need to do is to factor out this. That's the way, sorry for that. That's the way in which we are going to solve this equation right here. We are going to factor out this equation and produce the solution. Okay? So, first of all, I hope you have written this down. The formula: x equal to minus b plus or minus b squared minus 4ac on 2a, and you have drawn the graphs just to give you a way in which the graphs will always be presented. So, given you have written that, so talking about solving this equation, x squared minus 3x minus 10 equal to 0. Sorry guys, sorry for the too much yawning. Sorry for it, okay? So talking about this equation, x squared minus 3x minus 10 equal to 0. Now, looking at this, the first thing you got to do is to identify. You need to identify, because first of all, this is a standard equation for a quadratic equation. Ax squared plus bx plus c. Ax squared plus bx plus c. So, solving this, the first thing you got to do is to identify what's your A. Yeah. The next thing you got to do is to identify what's your B. Yeah. And of course, the last thing which you got to do is to identify what your C is. Yeah. So when you are being able to identify what's your A and what's your B and what's your C, then you are good to go. So your A here is 1. This you have x squared here. A here stands for the coefficient of x squared, and the coefficient of x squared here, you have, if you have no number here, you just have to be in your mind here you got 1. Okay, I hope you know that. I'm not supposed to tell you that. I hope you know that. Then for B, this is B. You see, your B there is minus 3, and your C is minus 10. So that's your A, that's your B, and that's your C. You get it? That's your A, that's your B, and that's your C. So you have A as 1, B as -3, and C as -10. Now we have gotten our A, we have gotten our B, we have gotten our C. The next thing we got to do is, firstly, you have to ask yourself a question, okay? You need to ask yourself a question. Awasume, come up, come up. So you need to ask yourself a question. What two values is it that if I add up is going to give me B? Okay, so you need to ask yourself, what two numbers is it that if I add is going to give me, what two numbers? Let's say those two numbers are x1 plus x2. I'm going to add is going to give me B. And those two numbers, if I multiply those same two numbers, is going to give me AC. So that's it. That's all about this, first of all. Not all about it, but the beginning of it. So when you are being able to identify your A, B, and C, the next thing you got to ask yourself is, what two numbers is it that if I add up is going to give me B, and those two numbers which I multiply is going to give me AC? So you really need to think about this, okay? You really need to think about it. Those numbers are available. You just maybe don't know about it. Maybe you are limiting yourself from thinking about those numbers. That should not be the case with you. So what you got to do is, you need to ask yourself, what two numbers you add, you're gonna have B, and what two numbers you multiply, you're gonna have AC. Now the question is, what's B? We spoke about that already, and we said B is -3. Now what's AC? We know our A is 1, and our C is -10. Sorry for that. As I said before, our A is 1 and our C is -10. So what's AC? Oh, sorry, please for a minute. Sorry, my cork fell on the floor. I just got to pick it up. So A, there is 1 and C is -10. So AC ends up being 1 times -10, which are going to end up with -10. That's good. -10. Now, so two numbers you add is going to give you -3, and if you multiply, it gives you -10. What could those two numbers be? What could be those two numbers? Let's see. Oh, it's getting crazy, right? Let's see. You multiply, it gives you 10. It gives you 3. Let's think about 5 and 2. Yeah, because first of all, we know 5 times 2 is gonna give you 10, and I know we can play it somehow to have that. So I think let's think about -5 and 2. Yes, let's say -5 and 2, because -5 times 2 is going to give you -10, and -5 plus 2 is going to give you -3. Yeah, -3. So with that being said, let me cancel out this, since you already have a full understanding. I hope you understand this very well. Minus 5 times 2 gives you minus 10, and minus 5 plus 2 gives you minus 3. You can't say 5 and 2 because 5 times 2 gives you 10, which is not negative 10. Okay? As well as you can't say negative 2 and 5 because negative 2 times 5 gives you minus 10, which is okay for AC. But what about B? Minus 2 plus 5 gives you 3, which is not minus 3. So that's an issue. You get it right? That's an issue. So we can't do that. So the numbers which you have on the table which we are going to use is minus 5 and 2, because minus 5 plus 2 gives you minus 3, and minus 5 times 2 gives you minus 10. So that's straight to the point, and I think you should have a better understanding of what I'm talking about. So let's clean this up. We got our numbers already. Please, I hope you are writing down some stuff, like taking down some notes on your key points which I'm talking about. Yeah. So we could wipe this off. Now the next thing which you got to do is, yeah, you got this I spoke about. You need to maintain this. When I say you maintain that, I mean you write s squared. Now you could write one of the numbers. Let's take 2x, put that in bracket, and the other was minus 5x minus 10. So you can see from here we have maintained x squared, and we have maintained this, and we have maintained the last, which is minus 10. Now these are values here, 2 and minus 5. So you always add x. You always add x at the end of it. Very nice in there. Oh, sorry for this, okay? So you always write this. When you write that, what you could do here, you could factor out x. You see? You factor out x here. If you factor out x there, what you have in here is x, because x times x gives you x squared. X times x gives you x squared. Now, plus, what should we put in here? X times what is going to give you 2x. X times 2. The next thing we got to do is we need to factor out minus 5x minus 10. The first thing you have to ask yourself is, what's the common factor of minus 5x minus 10? The common factor there is, you can see, is minus 5. So you take it out, okay? Now, minus 5 times 1 is going to give you minus 5x. Minus 5 times x is going to give you minus 5x. And the next thing which you're going to do is, minus 5 times 1 is going to give you minus 10. Minus 5 plus 2. Minus 5 times 2 is going to give you minus 10. And there's something I want you to take note of. Yep. When you are done factorizing, before that, you writing 2x here and writing minus 5x here. Exchanging those positions has no issue. Exchanging those positions has no issue. If you are rather written minus 5x here, then here you write 2x. There is no problem with that. There is literally no problem with that. You writing 2x, 5x, minus 5x, wheresoever you write that, there is literally no problem with that. At the end of the day, you are still going to have the same solution. So somebody writing that negative 2x on the other side, that's alongside x squared. Sorry, writing 2x 5 negative 5x alongside x squared, and you writing 2x alongside negative 10. There is literally no issue with that. Okay, you got no issue with that. So looking at that, when you are done then factorizing, the next thing which you have here, you have x plus 2 and you have x plus 2. So when you are done factorizing, this x plus 2 has to be the same with what you are having here. This has to be the same with what you are having here. If these two are not the same, then there is an issue with what you have done, bro. There is an issue with what you have done, because it's not correct. You got to have x plus 2 and x plus 2 there when you are done factorizing. It has to be like that. If it's not like that, then you know there's an issue. There is a problem somewhere. So you really need to try to correct that, okay? You need to make sure if you don't have these same values, if you don't have whatever you have here, if you don't have the same thing here, then you know your factorization got an error. So you need to rectify that. So as you can see, here we got the same stuff, so you're gonna have to just choose on one. Now you take these and these, so you're gonna have x minus 5, all this into x plus 2. Yeah, and sorry, you're gonna always remember, if you don't have equal to 0, then there is an issue with what you are doing. There should be an issue what you are doing. If you are not putting equal to 0, then you got a fatal error. So you need to always be vigilant, okay? Don't mess yourself up while trying to solve. The next thing you do is, when you have this, you then consider each of them equal to 0. That's, you have x minus 5 equal to 0, and x plus 2 equal to 0. So you have x minus 5 equal to 0 and x plus 2 equal to 0. Now, talking about this, you take this and go this other way. So you have x equal to 5 and x equal to, you take this way, minus 2. So you have x equal to 5 and x equal to minus 2. So that's it. There we got a solution for the equation x equal to 5 and x equal to minus 2. From the beginning, before we started this, I'm sure I told you already, we're going to have two solutions for this. As you can see, we have two solutions already. And what I want you to note is that we can always verify if our solutions are correct. We can always verify if our solutions are correct. So, for example, you have x equal to 5. You have to go back and check on it to see if x equal to 5 actually satisfies that equation. If x equal to 5 actually satisfies the equation. So when we talk about satisfying the equation, when you take x equal to 5 and put into each of the values, are you going to end up with what you are having on the right hand side of 0? That's the question. Are you going to end up what you have 0? If you put x equal to 5 into this equation and you don't end up with 0, then it tells you that there is an error in your calculation. It tells you there is a problem somewhere, because whatever values you have at the end, it has to satisfy the equation. Same thing with x equal to negative 2. If I substitute it in here and I don't end up with 0, bro, there is something wrong. There is something wrong. So you need to ask yourself those questions. So I want us to go ahead and try to verify on x equal to 5 as well as x equal to negative 2 to see if it satisfies the equation. So let's wipe off these, okay? Wipe off these. Now, substituting x equal to 5, you have 5 here, all squared minus 3 into x there is 5 minus 10 equal to 0. You get it? You have 5 there squared minus 3 into 5 minus 10 equal to 0. Now, what's 5 squared? That's the question. What's 5 squared? 5 squared is simply 5 times 5. It's simply 5 times 5. So 5 times 5 gives you what? It gives you 25. Minus, what's 3 times 5? What's 3 times 5? And sorry for saying that. We say what's minus 3 times 5, not what's 3 times 5. Because imagine you had a negative in here. You see what's 3 times minus 5? You have of course you say end up will have minus 15. You will have to write a negative here, keeping in mind that the next step, negatives, is a positive. So to make things not complicated for you, you always use the associated sign while discussing this. So you have minus 3 times 5, we should end up with minus 15. Minus 15. Minus 10. So equal to 0. So we are verifying. The left hand side has to be equal to what we are seeing on the right hand side. So from here, I think you can still remember your both mass, where it talks about when it comes to arithmetic solutions, whatever, you have to come up with some stuff first. Okay, so bracket, you need to check on bracket. You can see we try dealing with our brackets first. Of, which is of division, multiplication, addition, and subtraction. Of course, all got subtraction, so no issue. So here you have 25 minus 15. 25 minus 15 there, you got 10 minus 10. And you can bet with me 10 minus 10 gives you a 0. So you see 0 is equal to 0. That tells you that that equation is correct. Now the next thing we should have to do is, let's verify on x equal to negative 2. Oh, I've cancelled out the equation. Sorry for that. Let me check on it again. So we are x squared minus 3x minus 10 equal to 0. X squared minus 3x minus 10 equal to 0. So I want us to verify for x equal to negative 2. For x equal to negative 2, what do we have for this equation? So here we come and do the same thing. You have negative 2 all squared minus 3 into x is negative 2 minus 10 equal to 0. So with this in mind, what's minus 2 squared? Minus 2 squared simply means minus 2 times minus 2. So minus 2 times minus 2 gives you what? It gives you 4. Okay? Minus 2 times minus 2 gives you 4. So here you end up with 4. And minus 3 times minus 2. Minus 3 times minus 2, there you have what? You end up having minus 3 times minus 2, you end up having plus, because minus times minus gives you a plus. 3 times 2 gives you what? It gives you 6. So there you have 4 plus 3 times 2, yeah, that's correct, 6. And you have minus 10 equal to 0. Now we spoke about both mass already. Here you have a plus and a minus, both mass. You always got to start with something first. And that stuff which you got to start with is the addition before the subtraction. I want you to always know about both mass. Always make sure you follow up both mass. Some instances, you might go against the rule of both mass and still manage to get your solution right, but at times it might fail you if you are not able to follow the rule of both mass. So I need you to be very, very careful with that. For example, looking at what is on the board, here you have 4 plus 6 minus 10 equal to 0. Both mass tells us that you start with addition first before you go on to subtraction. So if I decide to go on with subtraction, 6 minus 10, I'm going to have minus 4. And 4 plus minus 4, this will give you 0, which is still the same as 0. Yes, starting with what both mass tells us addition, you still end up having 0. But that's not correct. That's not correct. That's why I said it works for some instances, but generally it's not correct because it will always bring you down sometimes. So doing it that way is not correct. So what you got to do is you start with addition, which is 4 plus 6, you have 10 minus 10, which is equal to 0. 10 minus 10 here gives you 0, which is equal to 0. So that's 0 equal to 0, okay? 0 equal to 0. That tells us that our solutions x equal to minus 5 and x equal to 5 and x equal to minus 2 are perfectly correct. Very, very correct. So you can see that is how it's been done. We have gotten our two solutions there. So just to give you a brief explanation of what we did again, just to emphasize. So as I said before, whenever we start solving these equations, there are always three ways which I spoke about. We have the graphical method, we have the factorization method, and lastly you have the quadratic formula. So using the quadratic formula is quite easy, as well as using the graphical method too is quite easy. But what we have done here, what I have shown you on the board, is simply factorization, where I had to talk about you checking on two numbers. First of all, identifying your A, identifying your B, and identifying your C. Then the next thing you got to do is you check on those two numbers, which if you add up is going to give you B, and if you multiply is going to give you AC. So when I spoke about that, the next thing I got to do is I asked myself, what are the two numbers which if I add up is gonna give me B, and if I multiply those two numbers is gonna give me AC. So that's what I came up with. That's what I asked myself. Okay, so looking at that, the next thing we should got to do is AC there. Looking at those two numbers, we came up with 5 and minus 2, and we associated x with it, and we then factor out and solve the equation, and we ended up with that. So doing that is very, very easy. Okay, it's very, very easy. Now I want us to try solving this same equation using the quadratic formula. Let's try solving it to see if we are going to end up with the same solution while using the quadratic formula. So I want you to pay close attention to what I'm going to show you right now, okay? Okay, so guys, now we have used the first method, which is the factorization method. Forgive me to take a sip of water. Okay, so we have spoken about the first method, which is the quadratic formula, right? Sorry, the factorization method, and I've taken you through that, and we have managed to have our solution. So the next one which we got to do now is quadratic formula. So as I said before, our quadratic formula is x equal to minus b plus or minus b squared minus 4ac all on 2a. So identifying our a, b, and c, which I told you on said is very, very important. So I think I will not be laying so much emphasis on that already, because I did that already, where our a there is 1, our b is minus 3, and our c is minus 10. So looking at that, the only thing we should got to do is just to input those values in our quadratic formula. All we need to do is to input those values in our quadratic formula. Inputting those values in our quadratic formula, here you have x equal to minus b. Now what's our b? Our b is minus 3. So you have minus of minus b, which is minus 3, plus or minus b squared. Now what's our b? Our b there is minus 3 all squared minus 4 into what's a? A is 1. And what's our c? Our c is negative 10. All this divided by 2a. What's our a? 1. I hope you are following up. Because this is not complicated. Solving this is not complicated. Where you have x equal to minus b plus or minus b squared minus 4ac all on 2a, where you have x equal to negative into negative 3 plus or minus square root of negative 3 squared minus 4 of 1 into negative 10. So all this all on 2a, where our a there is 1. So you can see doing that is not complicated at all. So you can then see that from here you have x equal to negative times negative 3. What do you get? There you have 3 plus or minus into minus 3 squared is 9. Minus 4 times 1, you have minus 4. And minus 4 times negative 10, you end up with what? Negative 4 times negative 10, you end up with 40. Plus 40. You need to make sure that this negative cancels out this negative. So you end up with plus 40. All this divided by 2 times 1, you have 2. So negative b, negative into b is negative 3. Negative times negative gives you a positive sign. That's why we end up with 3 here, and negative 3 squared there you have 9. Negative 3 squared you have 9, and minus 4 times 1 you have minus 4, and minus 4 times negative 10 you got plus 40. Plus 40. So that's the reason why in here we got 9 plus 40. So you can see 3 plus or minus of square root of 9 plus 40, all this divided by 2. So you have x equal to that. So looking at that, let's continue. Let's wipe this at the top. So looking at this, here you have x equal to, now you got 3 plus or minus of square root of, what's 9 plus 40? 9 plus 40 is 49. 9 plus 40 is 49. So you have 49. All this divided by 2. 9 plus 40 is 49. All that divided by 2. So the next thing you got to do now is you see x will be equal to 3 plus or minus, what's the square root of 49? What's the square root of 49? The square root of 49 is 7. So when they say what's the square root of 49, what I'm trying to say, what's that number which if you multiply it twice is gonna give you 49? What's that number which if you multiply it twice is gonna give you 49? And that number is 7. 7 times 7 is gonna give you 49. So you end up here with 7. All this on 2. So this tells you that you have x equal to 3 plus 7 all on 2, and x equal to 3 minus 7 all on 2. I've simply, because say you have plus or minus, there you got plus or minus, so I have taken for individuals of it, which you have x equal to 3 plus 7 all over 2, and x equal to 3 minus 7 divided by 2. So looking at this, what you do next is you say x will be equal to 3 plus 7 here is 10. Okay, 3 plus 7 is 10. So you then say 10 divided by 2. And here you have x equal to 3 minus 7. What's 3 minus 7? 3 minus 7 is minus 4. 3 minus 7 is minus 4. So you have minus 4 all on 2. So when you got that, the next thing you got to do is, what's 10 divided by 2? So you end up with x equal to 5, and x equal to minus 4 on 2 is minus 2. So you have the value of x equal to 5 and x equal to minus 2. And you can remember so well, that's the same solution which we had before when we were trying to factor out the equation. Okay, so I've taken you through the quadratic formula, and I've taken you through the factorization method, and you can see we all have the same solutions. We all have the same solutions while solving these. Now, the last method which you can still use to solve this particular equation is the graphical method. Yeah, the graphical method, so many solving this equation don't really use this. The graphical method can be a little bit time consuming since you got to sketch, to draw graphs and other kind of stuff, but it's all you're gonna be fast in it if you want to use the graphical method. Personally, I think one of the shortest way of solving this equation, well, I might say quadratic formula, but others might well consider the factorization method, as well as some too might think about the graphical method. So at the end of the day, it's all of your choice. Which one do you best understand how to use these particular methods to solve these quadratic equation? So the next thing I got to do is I'm going to give you a brief insight of how to use the graphical method to solve this particular quadratic equation. So moving on to, let's clean the board. So you have x squared minus 3x minus 10. X squared minus 3x minus 10. Right? X squared minus 3x minus 10. Looking at this, if you want to use the quadratic formula to solve this, it's all about plotting graphs for this, okay? It's all about plotting graphs for this to solve that particular equation. Okay, but I would like us to take a full lesson on this, how to use this quadratic formula, how to use the graphical method to solve this particular equation. So I'm going to take you on a full tutorial on how to do this. So right now I'm going to move into another example of a quadratic formula. It appears complex, but it's quite easy to solve. So I really think let's move on to it, and I hope you have a full understanding. You have had a full understanding of what I've been talking about all through this while, because that's my main aim, to try to make sure you are able to have a full understanding of how to solve this quadratic equation using any of it, which is the quadratic formula or the the quadratic formula or the factorization method, and the one which I'm still to show you, which is the graphical method. So next I want us to have a look at this example, okay? So we're done with this. I'm going to show you the graphical method. As I said before, I'm going to show you on a full tutorial. So I'm going to create a specific video for this special topic. Now, the next equation I want us to have a look at is square root of 2x squared, square root of 2x squared plus 7x plus 5 root 2. Square root of 2x squared plus 7x plus 5 root 2 equal to 0. Square root of 2x squared plus 7x plus 5 root 2 equal to 0. So let's try the quadratic. Let's try using factorization and see what we can get out of it. So talking about using a quadratic formula to see what we could get out of this, first of all, you can identify your a. The a there is square root of 2, the b there is 7, and the c there is 5 root 2. So as I said before, the a there is root 2, the b is 7, and the c is 5 root 2. Now we have to identify what's our AC. We need to identify what's our AC. Talking about AC, which is root 2 times 5 root 2. 2 times 2 is 4. 2 times 2 is 4 and square root of 4 is 2. Let me write this down for you to have full understanding. Because a is root 2 and c is 5 root 2. So root 2 times 5 root 2. Root 2 times 5 root 2. Here you have, of course you need to know we have 1 here. 1 times 5 you have 5, and root 2 times root 2. Root 2 times root 2 simply means here you have 5, 2 times 2. Okay? 2 times 2, which you will end up with 5 into root 4. You see, root 2 times root 2 simply is identical to square root of 2 times 2. I hope that's understood. And here you then have 5 into square root of 2 times 2, you have 4. And what's the square root of 4? The square root of 4 is 2. The square root of 4 is 2. So from here, you can then say AC is equal to 10. So AC is equal to 10. Now, we got our value for AC. We got our value for AC, which is 10. So I hope you have written that down, because it's very, very important. Hope you have written that down, because it's very, very important. So let's wipe out this. Okay, then moving on to factorizing this particular equation. You have square root of 2x squared now plus 2 too fast. We have not yet thought about our numbers, which if we multiply, so those two numbers, which if you add up is going to give you b, and if you multiply, it's going to give you AC, which you calculated already, and it was 10. So what two numbers, if you multiply, is going to give you 10, and if you add up, it's going to give you 7. I think this should be easy for you to think. Most of the times, talking about how I do come up with these kind of solutions, it's quite easy for me to think about those numbers, because looking at this, I always ask myself, what are the factors for each of those individual digits? Like talking about 7, I know I got just 1 and 7 as the factors. I got just 1 and 7 as the factors. Then the next thing which I ask myself equally is, what are the factors of 10? What are the factors of 10? Which here I got 1, I got 2, and I got 5. So now I got the factors of 7, I got the factors of 10. Don't forget it, 10 itself. So looking at this, the next thing which I have to do is, I just look at these digits, all of these digits. I try to play with them. I ask myself, which of these digits can I combine to multiply to give me 10, and which can I equally add to give me 7. Talking about the multiplication, personally, I know we can only mix 5 and 2 as well as 10 and 1 to give us 10. For example, 5 times 2 is going to give you 10, and 10 times 1 is going to give you 10. So that's it. Then what we then do is we know 10 times 1 gives us 10, but the issue is when you add the numbers 10 plus 1, is it going to give you 7? No. Even if we are to subtract 10 minus 1 or negative 10 plus 1, you always end up with something like 9 or negative 9 or 11. That doesn't give us 7. So then we then know the numbers 10 and 1 is out of the picture. So the next numbers which we got to be thinking about is 5 and 2. Okay, then we then go forward to say what's 5 times 2? Will it give us 10? Yeah, of course, 5 times 2 give us 10. But if we add up 5 and 2, is it going to give us 7? 5 plus 2 is equal to 7. So that tells us that that number is the right one. Okay? So, there might still be, when I wrote the factors here, okay, you can take the plus or minus of it. Keep in mind the plus or minus of it will always work for you to get out your two numbers. The plus or minus for each of those digits is always going to work out. So, having discovered those numbers and saying those numbers are 5 and 2, the next thing which we got to do as I said before, we always bring this down. So we have square root of 2x squared plus 2x, all this in bracket, 5x plus 5 equal to 0. Okay, so you have square root of 2x squared plus 2x, all that in bracket, multiplying 5x plus 5. So looking at this, factor out what's the common factor here. Looking at this, the common factor here, I think the common factor there which you can get is x. If you take out x times 1 is going to give you root 2x squared. And just to clarify, what makes me think the common factor there is x? What made me think the common factor there is x? When I say common factor, what I'm just trying to say is what number is here and is equally here, or what number is here and is somehow similar here, which we can try to factor out something which can multiply each of them to give us this value. So those are the questions which I ask myself, and asking myself those questions, I end up with x, because x times root 2x will give me root 2x squared, and x times 2x, x times 2 give me 2x. The reason I've taken x is because you can see x on the both side of it. You can see x on root 2x squared, as well as you can see x on 2x. So that makes it easy for you to move out the x as the common factor and multiply each of them to have it. So moving back onto the board, looking at it, here you have x which has been factored out. Now what do you multiply here to get root 2x squared? So what we can multiply here is root 2x. X times root 2x will give you root 2x squared. Okay? X times root 2x will give you root 2x squared. Plus x times 2 will give you 2x. X times 2 will give you what? Will give you 2x. Now, the next thing we got to do is, what's also the common factor here? Here you can see 5 is the common factor. So 5 out. 5 times 4 is going to give you 5x. 5 times x plus 5 times 4 is going to give you 5. 5 times 1. All this into 0. So you can see, oh, this gets interesting. Yeah, it really gets interesting. Looking at this, we have root 2x plus 2, and looking at this, we have x plus 1. And remember what I told you earlier, I said if we don't have the same value here as what is having here, then that tells us that our equation is wrong. So right now, looking at it, I know definitely something is wrong. Okay, something is wrong. So we need to try to figure this out. There is, let me see to be sure I copied the right equation. Okay, let me see if we took out x. Oh, oh, I get it now. I was really wondering what was the issue, and believe me, I got was the issue. You see, when writing this, it was 5 root 2. You see, equal to 0. So here, when you factor out 5, you have 5 times x, you have 5x plus 5 times 4 gives you 5 root 2. 5 times root 2. 5 times root 2 gives you that. But still here you got x plus root 2. And here you have root 2x plus 2. You see? So I want us to come over. Let's try to take out root 2x. No. Let's take out. What if you take 2x out? What are you going to have here? Oh, this gets really complicated now. Looking at this, so let's say this root 2x squared plus 2x. Yeah, it really gets complicated. You cannot take out 2x because what are you going to have in here? The only thing we should have it there is root 2 and 2x plus 1, which is root 2x. That doesn't make sense. That doesn't make sense. Okay guys, I think let's try to take out root 2 here. If you take out root 2 here, you end up with root no, you end up with, let's take out root 2x. You end up with x here plus root 2, and here let's take out 5. You end up with x plus root 2. Yes. So